Most computer games serve one purpose: relaxation and detachment from daily matters. The Elden Ring is different. Besides uncovering its story, the main goal for players is simply to die, hundreds or even thousands of times. So why has such challenging and inaccessible game sold over 20 million copies in just 2 years after its release? How did the game developers, FromSoftware, build hype around the title, releasing just 3 trailers, 3 interviews, and literally nothing else? Here is the story of one of the strangest yet most consistent marketing campaigns I've heard about. Elden Ring is an action RPG game released in February 2022 by the Japanese studio FromSoftware. This production is a successor of Dark Souls 3, which, despite its niche status, caused by a very high level of difficulty, sold 20 million copies in 4 years. Elden Ring sold 12 million copies in 3 weeks. When this video was made, over 20 million people had already played the game. Games known as Souls-like, as this distinctive subgenre has begun to be called, are designed to present a significant challenge to players from the very first minute. You cannot choose a difficulty level in these games. The plot is served to players in a very brief way, and to progress in the game at all, one must refer to dozens of guides created by other players. I have been playing games for over 12 years and mainly treat them as relaxing entertainment. Therefore, after an unsuccessful adventure with the first installment of Dark Souls, I gave up on FromSoftware's productions, and the same was true for Elden Ring. However, a month before the release of an expansion of this game, I wondered why such an inaccessible game, which practically had no marketing, became so popular. It turned out that the reason for the massive success of the production is, at the same time, banally obvious and extremely difficult to replicate, as it is based on 4 pillars. The first of these is honesty. People like what they know. A new movie or series demands more focus from the viewer, and its creators might worry that a new idea will be disliked. That's why creating another installment of Avengers or Spider-Man is usually a safer choice. Series, movies or games created from scratch thus need to make up ground with more aggressive marketing and larger promotional budgets. Although counted among new IPs or original games, Elden Ring had a much easier task. For over 15 years, FromSoftware has been creating games very similar to their latest work, each time meeting players' expectations. Each successive product from the studio was better than the last, which is why the initial hype level for a new FromSoftware product was high in itself. Such a high base trust level can be tied to the classic rule of authority. Hidetaka Miyazaki, the main creator of Elden Ring and 6 previous games from the studio, is an authority figure trusted by hardcore gamers. Thanks to this, the marketing expenditures for the new production could be significantly reduced, because in this case the quality spoke for itself. Of course, the heads of FromSoftware and the game's publisher, Bandai Namco, did not want to rest on their laurels. They knew that the brand's fame could spread so widely that someone who had heard about the studio's productions but had never played them might decide to purchase solely because of a newer, more accessible product was being released. In extreme cases, if our products gain a huge reputation among customers, a new product may not require any promotion apart from the mere information that it is being made. This was the case with the latest GTA 6, whose trailer was dissected by hundreds of internet creators. One famous YouTube comedian recorded a very apt sketch on this phenomenon, showing that if the game's publisher, Rockstar, assured people that the game would never be made, they would still go wild with joy, completely ignoring what the company had to tell them. For superfans, the only thing that matters is the company reaching out to them. However, simply being aware of your own brand's reputation is not enough to attract twice as many customers as ever in FromSoftware's history. To break out of the niche, you need to develop a plan that will not alienate the biggest fans, but will also attract more casual players. The second pillar on which FromSoftware based its success was, therefore, openness, but not so much. FromSoftware skillfully played the game of expanding its target audience, but only to achieve the so-called golden mean. The game remains challenging but is considered the most accessible of all the company's releases so far. The open world allows players to tackle challenges at their own pace and in their own way, making gameplay less frustrating and allowing for the acquisition of experience if we don't already have it. On the other hand, veterans of Souls-like games can still play Elden Ring like they played the Dark Souls series or Sekiro, so they don't feel stripped of the high difficulty level. A month after the game's release, GameIndustry.biz published interesting survey results among 200 players. It turned out that as many as 80% of new players purchased the Elden Ring precisely because of the open world. 67% of respondents stated that favorable reviews mattered to them, and only 27% of new players indicated that George Martin's involvement in creating the game's world mythology attracted them to the game. Okay, since the studio's latest game is considered the most casual, why not expand the target group further by adding a few levels of difficulty? Atriok spoke very sensibly on the subject in his video, presenting 4 arguments. Firstly, unlike other games, Elden Ring focuses on simplicity. In a world of games overloaded with tasks to perform, collectibles to find, and challenges to overcome, FromSoftware opted for a lack of overstimulation, which can be liberating for players. Secondly, the high difficulty level is, apart from the mysterious world, the game's second most significant distinguishing feature. These days, it has become extremely popular to add a story mode in which the difficulty level is reduced almost to 0. Thanks to this, many people not interested in games buy them because they are attracted by the story told, not the stressful combat. Many players were raised on much more difficult games from the 1980s or 90s. They yearn for a time where games were an elite experience, not accessible to people who did not have the right reflexes and patience. FromSoftware has perfectly filled this gap, and it would be totally folly for the company to close it. Yes, if they added a lower level of difficulty, many less hardcore players would reach for the title, but at the same time, a significant part of the company's target group would likely opt out of purchasing the studio's next games, feeling betrayed and deceived. Ultimately, the company would probably only lose from this move. Thirdly, the game is designed to evoke a sense of jointly overcoming obstacles. If it were easier, there simply would be no sense in using community-supporting mechanics, such as messages left by players in the game world or multiplayer mode. And finally, the right difficulty level means that every boss to be defeated is a real challenge. We cannot lower the difficulty level either after the first lost fight or after the 100th, so when we finally managed to do it, we feel satisfaction in almost no other contemporary game. Passing the Elden Ring cannot be cheated, so those who have defeated the last boss feel, well, like gods of the gaming world. They have more patience and skill than most players, which gives them a sense of superiority and athleticism. In this context, Elden Ring is a bit like Apple. Those who have mastered the game feel like they belong to an exclusive community, even though it doesn't actually exist. The game was bought by 20 million people, not 200 or 300, but the sense of exclusivity is so great that it is literally visible, for example, in game reviews. This illusion of exclusivity is skillfully maintained by the third pillar of Elden Ring's success, the mystery and the resulting sense of great satisfaction. FromSoftware masterfully combined the mysteriousness of the game world with the secrecy surrounding the release of Elden Ring. Instead of bombarding players with information to further inflate the hype bubble, the company released just one trailer and one interview with the creator and then remained silent for 2 years, publishing not a single post about the game. In a world saturated with electronic entertainment, creating a sense of scarcity proves to be incredibly effective. Game, movie, or series creators fuel hype for their work for months before their release, which on the one hand expands the reach, but on the other strips away the excitement and surprise and causes plain saturation before we even immerse ourselves in the world generated for us. It is very possible that Elden Ring would not have received as many as 4 rewards for the most anticipated game of the year if they had released 5 trailers instead of 3 and large advertising banners had covered the buildings of the largest European cities, as was the case with the promotion of the Polish game Cyberpunk. The first, very brief commercial for the game was released in 2019 during the E3 trade show. Only the second trailer, published in June 2021, about 8 months before the release, narrated a story that deepened the game's lore and world. Interestingly, unlike trailers for many movies or series, it does not spoil the most interesting gameplay moments but presents the plot in such a way that only those who have completed the game understand what really happened in the presented scenes. This technique intensifies the desire to know the story and simultaneously rewards players by emphasizing that they now belong to a unique community that knows what was really going on in the commercial. The trailer also poses several questions related to the plot, thus creating an information gap we want to fill by playing the game. The Elden Ring trailer was like the game itself, mysterious, understated, dark. The advertisement showed exactly what it should, which is almost nothing. Players who enjoy Souls-like games love these games partly because they can discover their worlds by themselves, entering a completely different level of immersion than in typical mass-market games. A mysterious trailer is, therefore, a mirror reflection of what players experience in the game. Hence, it effectively confirms that players will get what they desire. If Elden Ring had been advertised with 20 trailers, behind-the-scenes videos, and constant streams spoiling the plot before the game's release, such inflated marketing would not fit the target group's character, creating a sort of cognitive dissonance. A few days after the release of the second commercial, players could read a second interview with the creator. After that, FromSoftware again applied a tactic of grave silence, sharing only occasionally fan art from the players and wallpapers. 3 months before the release, FromSoftware opened registrations for closed game tests and published a 20-minute gameplay demo. Then again, despite the rapidly approaching game release, there was silence for 2 months. Creators cleverly hid the most essential elements of the shown gameplay, variably encouraging players to explore on their own without overly spoiling what and whom they might encounter during the gameplay. This approach is deeply rooted in the essence of playing Elden Ring, exploration and learning enemy behaviors to defeat them on the 5th, 10th, or even 100th attempt. Just a few weeks before the launch, the creators of Elden Ring emerged from their winter sleep, publishing a third interview with the game's creator and releasing a graphic showing the ratings from over 30 reviewers. This move subtly reignited interest without overwhelming the audience with information. Days before the game's release, the most detailed trailer appeared online, summarizing everything known about FromSoftware's latest work up at that point. This trailer prepared players for gameplay, highlighting its key aspects so they knew what to expect. On Platform X, the game's creators started sharing pre-release reviews as they came in. Instead of boasting about their creation, they simply showcased others' reactions, variably validating the high quality of the product. They let others speak for them rather than talking about themselves. On the release day, February 25, 2022, a short guide for beginners appeared on the YouTube channel of Bandai Namco's European division, the game's publisher. This approach also helped limit negative gameplay reviews because the guide's narrator initially emphasized that Elden Ring was about overcoming intentionally designed challenges. Explaining the basic mechanics also reduced what's known as friction, alleviating potential customers' concerns about whether the product was indeed for them and met their expectations. Despite the immense effort FromSoftware put into generating a sense of mystery and skillfully opening the game's world to new players, they would not have managed so well in the first few weeks after the game's release without the last fourth pillar of their success: the nearly obsessive fans of Souls-like games. In a world in which we are saturated with the advertisements popping up everywhere, FromSoftware's customers have been almost pleading for a more aggressive marketing campaign for years. On Reddit and Steam threads, fans spent years wondering why the distributor of Elden Ring hardly advertised the upcoming game at all. Some spread rumors that the game's release might be delayed, which further fueled the hype bubble. This high level of excitement sometimes spilled out of Reddit threads, enticing a more mainstream audience to take an interest in Elden Ring. Throughout the development period, despite the publisher's silence, interest remained so high that FromSoftware's creation was rewarded the most anticipated game of the year 2 years in a row at the Game Awards in 2020 and 2021. The fear of delayed release also caused another interesting psychological effect. We thought we were getting something, but suddenly there was a risk we might not, so we felt a void due to the loss, even though we hadn't lost anything yet. As a result, we wanted the product even more, even if our excitement had been only moderate so far. The lack of information about the progress of the game became so mimetic that a special YouTube channel was even created, where the author published daily updates about Elden Ring. Within 2 weeks of its release, Elden Ring sold over 12 million copies, outclassing games aimed at a more casual, mainstream audience. For example, Horizon Forbidden West, the second part of a great action RPG game, sold over 2.5 times worse than Elden Ring in the UK during a similar time frame from its own release. These figures clearly show that FromSoftware and its publisher, Bandai Namco's tactics, simply worked. One of the highest ratings in history from reviewers also helped, but only several days after the release itself. The publisher itself was surprised by such high sales, estimating that it would reach a mere 4 million purchased copies. The vast sales success was perhaps also influenced by the collaboration with writer George Martin in creating the game, although his real contribution in production was, as he emphasized, not very large. Interestingly, the game's creators didn't boast much about their collaboration with Martin, mentioning him only at the beginning of the first trailer, published 3 years before the game's release. After the game's release, FromSoftware returned to minimal marketing actions. The company regularly informed about the patches for the game and subsequent fan projects in the form of fan art, guides, or cosplays. Then, quite unexpectedly, after almost 2 years, they published a laconic announcement about the upcoming trailer for the game's only expansion. On the same day, the company announced the start of pre-orders for the expansion, and then, you wouldn't guess, almost disappeared again. While writing the script for this film, which is at the beginning of May, FromSoftware only occasionally reminds about the possibility of pre-ordering the expansion and continues to use the tactic of silence before the storm, even though there is just over a month left until the DLC's release. The mystery of Elden Ring's success is founded on 4 pillars. Each of them should be considered absolutely necessary to achieve outstanding sales results practically without marketing. If FromSoftware regularly lied to players, showing a false image of their production in trailers, even the most loyal fanbase would crumble after 1 or 2 such moves. If the story told in Elden Ring was boring and shallow, then even the studio's absolute honesty towards its customers would not make the games sell more than a handful of enthusiasts for very difficult gameplay. Greater openness to new players also would not have brought such immense popularity to FromSoftware's work, if not the skillfully built, mysterious world we can explore in many different ways. All these elements, honesty, openness, and mystery, created a legion of devoted fans who attract increasingly wider circles of the new interested parties. Even the largest marketing and advertising budgets cannot buy sincerity and hard work. Remember this if you are doing marketing for yourself or your client. The story of Elden Ring's popularity is a clear example of how well the synergy between players and the producer can work. Unfortunately, however, the opposite often happens, as customers of companies like GoPro have found out. If you are curious why this is a story with a typical villain, check out my previous film, which you now see on the screen.